In Aries, that is in Ashwini, Ketu is very adventurous, is very playful, is very straightforward, can even die for someone, and if it is required, then can even take somebody's life. In Magha, Ketu is very creative intelligence, is excellent in giving good performance. And by the time Ketu comes in Moola, Ketu is completely matured. And now Ketu is more interested in the philosophy of life. Now this Ketu is more interested in exploring the spiritual path. And that is why Moola Nakshatra natives are highly spiritual by nature. Because now the whole focus is in understanding the purpose of life, in finding the meaning of life. So Moon in Moola Nakshatra person is definitely not a shallow person, but has immense depth of understanding. That is why I always say, never take a Moola person lightly, because he has a certain depth of understanding. It is possible that in the early years of his life, he may be an idiot. People may call him stupid, just the way it happened with Kalidas. During the early days of his life, he was considered as an idiot, and then he was married to a queen, to a princess. And the princess came to know the very next day that her husband is an idiot. He's a stupid person. So she kicked him out of the palace. And Kalidas was homeless. He started wandering all over the place, through all the towns and villages. People threw stone at him because they thought he's a mad person. But Kalidas was not a mad person. Finally, he went to a temple, the temple of Kali, goddess Kali. And it is in this temple that he started his penance. And he did the penance for many years. But still there was no result. So finally he went before goddess Kali and he decided to cut his head. And as he was about to cut his head, goddess Kali appeared before him. And she blessed him with wisdom, with love. And then the same Kalidas, the man whom the world addressed as a mad person, the same Kalidas became the Shakespeare of India. He scripted many plays and many books. He became one of those 9 gems of Raja Vikramaditya. The king Vikramaditya appointed him as one of his 9 gems, that is one of his 9 ministers, who were the best in his kingdom. It may be that Kalidas must be a Moola moon person. Initially people didn't understood the depth that he has. They all ignored him. They all ridiculed him. They all condemned him. And finally he was thrown out on the street. But the same Kalidas rose to such a great height that even today we remember him, we address him as the Shakespeare of India. So never underestimate a Moola Nakshatra person. always remember, a lake is very large, but a well is very small. But still, people come to the well. They don't go to the lake. You know why? Because well has a depth which a lake doesn't have. This kind of depth only Moola Nakshatra has. That is why I love this nakshatra. It is here that Ketu is in its full form. It is here that Ketu spreads his wings and enables the native, if he or she is an evolved soul, to progress on the spiritual path. And to progress on the spiritual path, much has to be cut. Only the essential has to be kept. Remember my words. Much has to be cut. Only the essential, the very necessary, has to be kept. What it means is that you have to become more and more detached. And Moola Nakshatra, the nakshatra of Ketu, is the perfect place where you can attain the stage of detachment. In this podcast, I will share more about my favorite nakshatra, Moola Nakshatra. And I will also share a beautiful story which is very close to my heart. So let's begin. Ketu matures in Moola, meaning this is where Ketu is in the ultimate state of enlightenment. But remember, enlightenment happens only when you become zero. And to become zero, you have to go through many upheavals because much has to be cut, only the essential has to be kept. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. Enlightenment is the complete eradication of everything we imagined to be true. Moola is closely connected to Lord Ganesha. If you make an offering of sweets to Lord Ganesha on the Moola Nakshatra and daily recite the Ganesha mantra, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, then the malefic effects of Moola Nakshatra are nullified. However, one has to do this remedy for a minimum 12 years consistently. Ketu is wisdom, and only wisdom has intelligence. Moola is the epitome of intelligence, since Ketu matures in the sign of Sagittarius. In fact, Ketu is exalted in Moola Nakshatra, which occupies the first part of Sagittarius sign. Native born with moon in Moola is passionate and also is intense by nature. The result of this placement is that the person has the quality of going to the depth of the matter. And thus, many good doctors, investigative officers, PhD holders, great scientists, and scholars and pandits are born with a moon in Moola Nakshatra. Ketu is devoted to Lord Shiva, and so all men and women born in Ketu's nakshatra or having a strong positive Ketu in the birth chart are found to be an ardent devotee of Lord Shiva. Moola being the peak of Ketu's presence, native born with moon in Moola is often found to be a great devotee of Bhole Shankar, Lord Shiva. However, since Moola is too hot by nature, it is also necessary that the native worships Lord Ganesha. Since by worshipping Lord Ganesha, much calmness will come to his being. Ganesha is a very soothing deity, and so to balance the overall temperament, the native born in Moola should worship Lord Shiva and Lord Ganesha. One beautiful quality of Moola born native is that they will not think much. They will simply follow the voice of their heart. That reminds me of a beautiful story. There was once a man, and his name was Mojood, and he must be a Moola born native. He lived in a town where he had obtained a post as a small official, and it seemed likely that he would end his days as inspector of weights and measures. One day, when he was walking through the gardens of an ancient building near his home, Khidr, the mysterious guide of the Sufis, appeared before him. Dressed in shimmering green, Khidr said, "Man of bright prospects, leave your work, leave your job, and meet me at the riverside in 3 days' time." And then he disappeared. Mojood was a Moola person. He had great faith in the mysterious guide of the Sufis, known as Khidr. And being a Moola, he was ready to jump in the unknown. He was ready to take the risk. And so Mojood went to his superior and said that he had to leave his job. Everyone in the town soon heard of this, and they said, "Poor Mojood, he has gone mad." But as there were many candidates for his job, they soon forgot him. On the appointed day, Mojood met Khidr, who said to him, "Tear your clothes and throw yourself into the stream. Perhaps someone will save you." Mojood did so, even though he wondered if he were mad. Since he could swim, he did not drown, but drifted a long way before a fisherman hauled him into his boat, saying, "Foolish man, the current is strong. What are you trying to do?" Mojood said, "I really don't know." "You are mad," said the fisherman, "but I will take you into my hut by the river, and we shall see what can be done for you." When he discovered that Mojood was well spoken, he learned from him how to read and write. In exchange, Mojood was given food and helped the fisherman with his work. After a few months, Khidr again appeared, this time at the foot of Mojood's bed, and said, "Get up now and leave this fisherman. You will be provided for." Mojood immediately quit the hut, dressed as a fisherman, and wandered about until he came to a highway. As dawn was breaking, he saw a farmer on a donkey on his way to the market. "Do you seek work?" asked the farmer, "because I need a man to help me bring back some purchases." Mojood followed him. He worked for the farmer for nearly 2 years, by which he had learned a great deal about agriculture, but little else. One afternoon, when he was baling wool, Khidr appeared to him and said, "Leave that work, walk to the city of Mosul, and use your savings to become a skin merchant." Mojood obeyed. He was a Moola person. In Mosul, he became known as a skin merchant, never seeing Khidr while he plied his trade for 3 years. He had saved quite a large sum of money and was thinking of buying a house when Khidr appeared and said, "Give me your money, walk out of this town as far as the distant Samarkand, and work for a grocer there." Mojood did so. Presently, he began to show undoubted signs of illumination. He healed the sick, served the fellow men in the shop during his spare time, and his knowledge of the mysteries became deeper and deeper. Clerics, philosophers, and others visited him and asked, "Under whom did you study?" "It is difficult to say," said Mojood. His disciples asked, "How did you start your career?" Mojood said, "As a small official." "And you gave it up to devote yourself to self mortification?" they asked, and Mojood said, "No, I just gave it up." They did not understand him. People approached him to write the story of his life. "What have you been in your life?" they asked. Mojood said, "I jumped into a river, became a fisherman, and then walked out of his hut in the middle of the night. After that, I became a farm hand. While I was baling wool, I changed and went to Mosul, where I became a skin merchant. I saved some money there, but gave it away. Then I walked to Samarkand, where I worked for a grocer, and this is where I am now." But this inexplicable behavior throws no light upon your strange gifts and wonderful examples, said the biographers. "That is so," said Mojood. So the biographers constructed for Mojood a wonderful and exciting story, because all saints must have their story, and the story must be in accordance with the appetite of the listener, not with the realities of life. This story is a representation of life. This is the real life story of one of the greatest Sufi saint. The story is significant in many ways. You simply have to jump, and that is how the greatest creations have evolved. Only by those who have taken the risk to jump. Mojood was such a faithful man. He believed in himself, and only that man can jump who believes in himself, and only a man who believes in himself can believe in God. You cannot believe in God until you believe in yourself, says Swami Vivekananda. Mojood lived his life by following the voice of his heart. He continued to jump. He continued to risk his life. He showed courage and daring. He was not a man who could live his whole life in a comfort zone. He had a good government job, but he decided to drop his job and embraced the many adventures of life. That is precisely how a Moola native is. He can do the unbelievable, and therefore he can also achieve the unbelievable. That is how Mojood became one of the greatest Sufi saint, a man of many miracles, a great wise man. He simply allowed life to take him wheresoever it wants to. He became like a river, continued to flow like a river without worrying about the destination or the outcome. Remember, just allow life to take you wheresoever it leads you, and don't be afraid. Fear is the only thing one should be afraid of, nothing else. Move. Be courageous and daring. Mojood was a common clerk working in a government office. However, it was his immense faith in Khidr, the mysterious guide of the Sufis, and his willingness to take risk is what made him an extraordinary man. Moola Moon has exactly these qualities. They have deep faith and the courage to take risks, and these qualities exist within them because Moola is ruled by Ketu, and Ketu is beyond logic, beyond mind. And everything that is beyond mind is beautiful, is divine, is real. The way beyond is awareness. The way beyond mind is meditation. Moola therefore is a blessing in disguise for an evolved soul. I said blessing in disguise because through Moola, the native may end up losing many things in life. However, remember, whatever he or she loses is because it is an obstacle for their self growth. And so you may lose everything in life, but then you may attain that which is of higher altitudes, which is of higher consciousness, which is beyond the mind. The great Sufi saint Rumi says, knock and he'll open the door. Vanish and he'll make you shine like the sun. Fall and he'll raise you to the heavens. Become nothing and he'll turn you into everything.